Oh, hello, I didn't see you there. This is Dr. Thaddeus Venture, and you're listening to the Longbox Guys. Whatever that means.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Longbox Guys presents Secret Origins. I'm here with my fellow Longbox guy, Tom. Tom, how you doing?
Just okay.
Way to keep the audience upbeat. So this is our YouTube special podcast where we're going to be interviewing different people and finding out the secret origins, what made them the geek that they are. In order to break down the podcast, we're going to divide it up into different categories. One comic book or graphic novel, one novel or short story, a TV show or TV series, a movie or movie series, a game, and then a wild card category. And today's guest is one of the Longbox guys. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Hey, Mike, I'm doing great. To counterbalance Tom's negativity.
Yeah, thank you. God, fucking bringing us down. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this. This is a podcast on YouTube with explicit language. So if you do not like explicit language, you have come to the wrong fucking place.
Yeah.
God damn it, you're right, Mike.
Did you go with God damn it? That's what you went with?
Oh, my God.
Jesus, step it up a notch, LT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck off, Josh.
I'm just bringing it all the way up, just so we can it's all downhill from there.
So, Josh, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about this awesome podcast I hear you're on?
So I am I am 25% of the Longbox Guys. We podcast every week. We pick a different comic book or anything comic related, movies. We have different segments. I started out as a special guest and then eventually just succumbed to the lure of podcasting. And we have about 120-ish episodes now. So we've been going for over 2 years. Going strong.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. You can check it out on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, pretty much anywhere you can get your podcast. All you got to do is search for the Longbox Guys, and you'll probably find us. We also are on Twitter at the Longbox Guys. And what's our Facebook account, Tom? You're responsible for that.
The Longbox Guys.
Yeah, facebook.com/Longbox Guys. Also, we have a Patreon account if you'd like to listen to our Patreon-only podcast, The GOAT, the greatest of all time. For just $1 a month, you can be a member of the Longbox Legion supporting us and get that exclusive podcast. But let's get on with this podcast, The Secret Origin of Josh Opper. Josh, I'm going to let you pick you decide what category you want to start with, and we'll go from there. I have a list in front of me. I have made predictions of what you might choose. I am curious if I get any of them right.
Okay. So I am going to start chronologically, I think.
Oh.
So I'm going to kick it off first with a TV series. So when I was a kid, this is 1980. That would have made me 7. So 1980 and 1981, I am 7 and 8 years old, and Thundar the Barbarian comes on.
Damn it. I thought it was Battlestar Galactica. But then if it's 1980, it would have been Battlestar Galactica 80, and that would have been horrible.
That would have been horrible.
Horrible.
And Thundar the Barbarian really is the first D&D like fantasy thing that really hits me right in the or comes over the airwaves and hits me right in the face. It is the cartoon that makes me get up early on Saturday morning, sit in a pile of warm blankets and stare at a 19-inch screen, 10 feet away with a remote that is air compressed to turn the channel. That's still attached to a cable to my TV.
Wow, you got a remote. Look at you, fancy.
Oh, yeah, we had it.
Fancy.
We had it all. Yeah. We were also one of the first people in my town to have a cable box.
Whoa.
Oh, go ahead, brag. Why don't you, Josh?
I know, yeah. We're killing it back then. So Thundar really just sort of pushed me in that direction where I started thinking about fantasy and I started thinking about magic and spells and swords, and really just sort of like it drew me right in. I was hooked straight away.
And Thundar the Barbarian had a bunch of things that it stole from other source material, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it had a princess that he had to rescue. It
Yeah.
had Ookla the Mock, which we all know was just a ripoff of Chewbacca.
Yeah, it was basically Star Wars. Yeah, it was basically Star Wars without the Falcon.
Yeah,
it was basically horses instead of the Millennium Falcon. That was pretty much the only difference. Yeah,
and Conan instead of Han Solo.
right. But he still had Han Solo's vest.
Oh, that's
Just
true.
just nothing underneath.
Yeah, I forgot he was rocking that man chest.
He was. It's awesome.
And a lot less blasters in the world.
I don't know if it was a lot less. I mean, he was like the barbarian with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
But Ookla had he had basically Chewbacca's crossbow. He had like a blaster.
Yeah.
And then Ariel, of course, she was throwing magic around like nobody's business.
But in general, the world was a much more savage place.
Yeah, and Ariel was basically Sue Richards.
Yeah.
Like all of her powers were basically Sue Richards. She just made like those force bubbles. She always turned them invisible, but really she was just making force fields and pushing people around. So they really, just like stole little bits and pieces from everywhere and put it on a broken Earth. And it was fantastic. Like there was just nothing more I could get out of a cartoon than what Thundar gave me.
And surprisingly, it wasn't one of the big company productions. I would assume because they ripped off so much, it was going to be a Hanna-Barbera, but it wasn't. It was Warner Brothers, I guess, distributed it, but it was Ruby Spears Productions. And it was on ABC. I just Googled it. I didn't know this shit offhand.
I was like, wow, Mike, you're killing it over there.
Created by Steve Gerber, who did a long run on Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy and Defenders and all that stuff. He's a prolific writer for Marvel Comics.
And that's almost a segue for me.
Yeah. Well,
not quite.
It's not going to be Howard the Duck, is it?
No, it's not going to be Howard the Duck.
Okay. You're saving that for your movie. I got you.
Yeah. That's what I'm saving it for. So that brings me to my discovery of the red box, right? All old school D&Ders know the red box, right? So this is my game. Dungeons and Dragons. I ended up at what was the bookstore that was in every mall when we were kids?
Walden's?
Walden Books?
Walden's.
Or B. Dalton?
I was in a Walden's in the Eastfield Mall, and I saw the red box. And for those of you familiar with the cover, it's like a bronze dragon, and there's a guy with a glowing sword like jumping into swing, and it looks like he's gonna cut the tooth off the dragon, and he basically looks like Thundar. So he's just a guy from behind. I think he's got like a scale mail like vest on, essentially. It's sleeveless, and he's got the barbarian, like the fuzzy boots, and I was entranced right away. I'm like, what is it? Like I didn't even know what it was. I didn't care. There was something in that box that I needed,
right?
Because it had Thundar on the cover. So I have it in hand. I'm like 8 or 9. I run up to my mom because Thundar was 80 and 81. So I run up to my mom and I'm like, I have to have this. And she looks at the box, turns it around, and it says ages 11 and up. And my mother won't buy it for me.
Ow, Dolly's sticking to her gun. Sorry. Too freaking young. Sorry.
Yeah. Sticking to the warning. She absolutely will not buy it for me.
Yeah, because those advanced 11-year-olds with all their cussing and sex games.
Bastards. I know what they're doing in that box, and I can't have it till I'm 11.
That's right.
And it was driving me insane. It drove me nuts.
So you didn't get it for 2 more years?
Yep. My mother gave it to me for my 11th birthday.
She bought it and held on to it?
Yes, that very copy.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't even know how many times I searched my house. Like, I was, like, up in the rafters. I was, like, looking through, like, everywhere I could find. I went, and I could not find where she hid it. But, yes, she had that box in her house, dormant. I can hear tiny wizards and warriors crying, "Help me, get me out of here," for 2 years. And it just echoed through my life like an itch I could not scratch. It was horrifying. It was horrifying. It was like...
So
2 years of absolute torture.
That was your first experience with Dungeons and Dragons, was the basic set, right? And did you have anybody to play with, or did you just open it up, figure it out, read it, and be like, I'm going to run my own adventure against myself?
Because they had the intro adventure that was like the one player walkthrough. Yeah. And then I just kept making that one player walkthrough bigger. Like I just kept adding stuff. I kept drawing it onto the map, Right. But I'd always play it from the beginning. I never left off anywhere.
Obviously.
So I thought, because you're used to like video games and stuff when you're a kid, and you haven't really, the whole idea hasn't coalesced in your adolescent brain, especially when you're alone, trying to figure it out alone. So I always thought I had to start from the very beginning. So I always played a cleric because everybody else died because they couldn't get hit points back. there was no other way to live, Mike. You had to. I was like, who plays anything but a cleric in this game? How can you get anywhere?
When did you learn that it would be fun to play with other people?
I mean, I think I read through it enough where, and I think on the end of the box, it actually said like 4 to 6 players, right?
Right.
So they just had that one thin, it was like, it was a 4-pager. And I kept trying to drag people into it. My friends who didn't come with me into the world of Dungeons & Dragons, my friend Chris and Rob and Scott and all these kids. And I kept trying to get them to play, and they just it just fell apart immediately. Nobody had either the attention span or the will to actually sit down and figure the game out. Right. So then, the hunt, that was the hunt when you started looking. And that is not an easy thing when you're in a small town trying to find out on the down low.
Right, yeah. You couldn't be like, hey, because back in the 80s, that was the devil's game, and it led to suicide, too.
Yeah, I can't even remember. Like Mazes and Monsters came out like the year before that, I think. So Tom Hanks totally screwed me. I mean, just he warned everybody in my town that I was a monster and had to be put down.
Yeah, you were going to go into the sewers and go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I could barely wiggle into a sewer in Munson, and it was like a 1.5 in diameter. So it's probably going to be horrible either way. But yeah, it was pretty. That was tough. That was a tough time.
There's a lot of those kids just didn't make it till 12.
They did not.
When did you start playing with us? Like 85?
It was 85, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you had to wait a while before you actually found a D&D group, right?
Yeah, it took almost a year. Yeah, a year of like just closet gaming by myself to try to find you guys.
I never forget the first day I met you, because we had been told that an opera wanted to join our D&D group, and we were all worried it was going to be your brother Mark, because he was a fucking asshole. He might not be anymore. He's an adult, I assume. All right, whatever. But we were all worried. We're like, oh, we're going to get this dick who, because, Jay's mom wants us to invite him to go play. And then there's a doorbell ringing, and I go to answer the door, and I look out, and I don't see anyone, and then I look down.
Yeah. My halfling self.
Yeah, well, we were 4 years older than you.
Yeah.
Or 5. I was like anywhere from 4 to 6 years older than you. So when we were already in high school, and we're looking down like, oh, this is not who I was expecting. You're like, hi, my dad said I could come here and play D&D. And we brought you in, and we had Nicole Sitka was playing with us, and she saw you and saw how adorable you were, and was like, you sit right next to me, and pulled you right into her boobs.
Which is the best place for a 12-year-old ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Very comforting. Yeah.
And that's the true reason why you had to wait until you were at least 11 to play D&D.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you
definitely
didn't get,
one of them.
Yeah. All right. Well, excellent. So that was your game, I assume, right?
Yeah, that's my game. Yeah. So that was the TV series and the game.
And I'll have you know, for TV show, I had guessed Arrested Development because I had no other ideas. But for game, I definitely had Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to avoid the D&D.
Yeah,
it is the foundation of it all, really.
Yeah, I have made my guesses for Josh, and I am 50-50 right now. What's your next category?
So the next one is movies, and this actually came out between when I got Dungeons and Dragons and started playing with you guys, and the movie is Ghostbusters.
Ah, man, I blew that one. I thought it was going to be Star Wars.
Yeah, I think Thundar almost covered Star Wars for me. And
Right.
Star Wars is a big thing, but I think the impact Ghostbusters had on me, it was the first real like adult comedy I had seen. For some reason, I in my brain I don't remember Ghostbusters being super popular as like a first launch movie, like, but when we went to go to the theater, it was so crowded. My parents wanted to leave, and I said, "No, I'll just sit in the aisle." Like, that's how bad I wanted to see it. Like, I literally just sat on the aisle with a tub of popcorn, and just people had to walk around me. I would not leave the theater. So that somehow that story and how it's told, while both being having trails of, just sort of mystery and horror and comedy, and I think that movie and just the one-liners just stuck with me so hard. I quote Ghostbusters like every day as an adult, and I mean, I probably 5 times a day I say "mother puss bucket." I say that out loud all my adult, like, since 1984. So that movie just had some indelible reach into me and really showed me how, one, adults could just be funny. Like,
Right.
Bill Murray was just an adult who was funny. And how that sort of setting, any kind of movie, no matter what the topic was, with enough snark, you could make any situation, you could relieve any uncomfortable situation with humor, which is basically what I've done my entire life.
Right. And I have to say, I've known you for over 30 years now. And I can easily say, anybody who asks Josh if he is a god, he always says, yes, I
Yes.
am a god.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, you always say yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that movie just is one of those things that I think helped sort of kickstart me as a storyteller, and really showed me that you could diffuse almost any situation with humor, which is how I just handle myself so much through life,
Right.
whether it's business or college or high school.
Yeah, fun Alex fact about the movie Ghostbusters. If you read the original script, you're going to notice it's not the same as the movie. And it never is, right? But Bill Murray ad-libbed a lot of stuff that they ended up keeping in the movie because he's just so funny and just off the cuff.
Yeah, I heard he ad-libbed so much in Caddyshack that I can't remember who's the actor, the old guy with the white hair.
Rodney
Ted Knight?
Dangerfield?
No, Ted Knight. Yeah. So Ted Knight was so upset that so much of the film actually ended up with Bill Murray was supposed to be like in 2 scenes, and then they just exploded the whole Gopher thing because of all of his improv. And Ted Knight apparently was very upset that he really started taking over the movie and taking away from his serious dialogue. But who doesn't love Bill Murray?
Right. Exactly.
Ted Knight.
Other than Ted Knight.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, what's next?
Then we're going to the book. So this is actually also in that same time frame, just between when I first got the red box and met you guys. And this is Dragons of Autumn Twilight.
Damn it.
Dragonlance. It was the first. I had read The Hobbit already, and for some reason, my librarian was a terrible human being, and tried to. And when I was like pursuing like more things like The Hobbit, she skipped The Lord of the Rings entirely and handed me the Silmarillion. Now, as an 11-year-old, trying to read the Silmarillion is like trying to read the Bible alone without anybody teaching you anything else about it. It's an uncomfortable read. You're just reading bits and pieces of he begot who was with him and had his name and left this person and went to this land. And if you didn't have, a notebook or a photographic memory, you were not making it through the Silmarillion as an 11-year-old. It just wasn't happening. So I was basically cut off from The Lord of the Rings because I thought everything Tolkien was doing after The Hobbit was similar to that. Right? Yeah, it was awful. Yeah, it was just a torturous nightmare. So I bowed out of that for a while, and a friend in school, I saw the cover of Dragons Autumn Twilight, and he loaned that book to me, and I consumed it in like 2 days. Like, I sat down and read it cover to cover. Like my mom was like, turn the light out. And I'd turn the light out, wait 10 minutes for my mom to go back to bed, and I'd turn the light on and just keep reading. And that was when I realized I needed a party.
Ah.
The cleric doesn't go alone. He's got
true.
a paladin and a ranger and a sorcerer and a barbarian. The cleric doesn't have to go alone. You just gotta whip up a party. And I was like, this is it. Like that's the solution. I don't have to start from the beginning, and I can be something other than a cleric because someone else can play the damn cleric.
You need 4 players.
You need at least 4 players. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it kind of teaches you that life lesson that it's easier to do things in a group than it is to do it by yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's more fun.
It's definitely more fun. That was absolutely more fun. So that was sort of that was everything. Yeah, pretty much everything happened to me. Like right around 84 was just this big miasma of everything that would affect me for the rest of my life, culminating in, of course, I'm going to go to my wild card, which is meeting you guys. Not just Dungeons and Dragons, but suddenly as a very young kid compared to all you guys, right? I was, like you said, 4 to 6 years older than everyone there, sort of being injected into that world. So, like, basically, I leapfrogged high school, right? I skipped it entirely. Yeah. I hung out with you guys for like a year, and you guys started trickling away to college, and of course, I trickled with you. Most of my high school free days off were spent at UMass Amherst, where I was writing English papers for Andy or attending a class. And so when somebody said their name, I could just yell out "here" in some giant audience hall at UMass that had 150 people in it. And then of course using my Ghostbusters charm to convince everyone that I was a child prodigy on campus and not in fact a high schooler, which worked so much more often than one might imagine. Mostly thanks to the emergence of Doogie Howser at the time. But that atmosphere of moving away from people in your age and quickly adapting to people who have already gone through and done everything, and hearing and seeing what you guys were doing at the time that I didn't have to go through myself was just an amazing thing for me. And that time I really just tried to convince my father that I could pass the GED at the minimum age, which was 15 at the time, and skip high school and go right to college so I could be in college with you guys. And my father wouldn't let me take the test. And I was like, Dad, this is Munson High. Like, how much education do you really think I'm going to get at Munson High? If I just get my GED right now, they look at my current high school grades, I can get into UMass. Like, I'll be ahead of the game. It's 2 years earlier, which means it's going to be cheaper. School's not getting any cheaper as we go forward, right? Let's do it now. I had all these arguments laid out for my father, and he just wouldn't buy it. Would not buy it.
Well, in hindsight,
divorce. So I think they were trying to clamp down on sort of all of us, and none of us were really in a good headspace. I mean, I was probably, oddly, thanks to you guys, probably in a better headspace than either my sister or my brother, even being the youngest. But I still think it was a good idea.
Yeah, I remember when we were having our senior parties and everything, and of course, you were with us and you were drunk, and you were like, "You sons of bitches, you want me to hang around with kids my age? Fuck you! I'm gonna hang around with kids my age.
They're horrible.
They're all so young and stupid."
Granted, they were all taller than me, but everyone's taller than me even now, so it's fine. But yeah, like it was like when you guys stepped away, and that left me like drowning in high school people, and they were just terrible. Like they were terrible people. If anybody I went to high school with is listening, you might be an okay person now, but you were horrible. You were a horrible person in high school. Probably to me in particular.
Didn't you graduate with LT?
No, he was a year ahead of me.
I was a year ahead of him.
Oh,
so we did go to high school together. So
yeah, we did. You were horrible.
I'm horrible.
Well,
I mean,
essentially, yeah, you are.
Essentially. I mean, you weren't horrible, but I mean, yeah, most people I interacted with that weren't part of our sort of ecosphere. Yeah, we're just
And-
terrible.
And you were one of the few students at Munson High who could claim that you went out drinking with one of your substitute teachers.
That's true. That's true.
Not one.
Wombo has the best claim about high school, but he slept with our English teacher's daughter in her bed.
Mambo for the win.
Sorry, I'm outing you, but yeah, it's brilliant. Like, and as a high school accomplishment, that's like you might as well just climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
All righty, sweet. So that was your other. Just so you know, I had nothing for your other. I didn't know what you were going to pick. It was too much of a wild card for me to figure out. But I had The Hobbit as your book, so that's why I was like, son of a bitch when you said Dragons of Autumn.
Yeah. So, and that brings me to the comic book, and that brings me direct into contact with you guys because once again, comic books were not in my sphere until I started hanging out with you and Tom. And I believe it was either you or Tom who just handed me a stack of X-Men and said, go read this. And that sort of culminated in, I think, of course, X-Men Giant Size Annual #1, right? That's the X-Men I know. It's the X-Men I love. And from that point on, and granted, that was, way before I started reading, but it was that first big comic that hit your hand, and you just saw the complete change of something that just turned into, a hobby that we still have today, right? We still talk about every week on the podcast.
Right.
So the X-Men was, and the X-Men is just one of those early glances into diversity when you're a kid where there's no diversity, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There was no diversity in Munson.
Yeah.
But it does help you, right? Because you're reading about characters and you're empathizing with a minority, even though you're not part of it. Although I guess being Jewish in Munson, you were a minority, but
yeah,
you didn't really, I don't.
There was no ire against us because nobody knew what Jews were.
Right.
Like, you couldn't out. There's no way to tell. I mean, if you're used to the stereotypes and somebody catches my profile, they might think I'm Jewish. But other than that, right, there's really no outward, except for there's a very slight sense of isolation, especially when everyone in my, you were either Irish, Catholic, or Italian. There's very few admixtures in Munson, and so kids were getting confirmed at the time, and everyone was talking about their confirmation. I'm getting confirmed, blah, 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 confirmation. And I went to my dad. I'm like, Dad, all these kids are getting confirmed. As what? And he's like, what? It's like, they're all getting confirmed. Confirmed as what? Like, it's a goddamn mystery. And everybody knows about it except me, and I don't want to ask because I don't want to seem like an asshole. Like, what are they talking about? So yeah, besides a little bit of isolation like that, but really it's just as I started to wise up and get into maybe my last 2 years of high school, I realized nobody knew what Jews were really, unless there was a copy of The Prophet in the library, and that was about it, which left me wide open to create fake Jewish holidays and skip school. And since there was no internet, nobody could confirm one way or another if I was telling the truth or lying, and they couldn't really do anything about it. So there was a lot of days I was at UMass Amherst I just picked Jewish Hebrew words out of the book The Prophet and just called it a holiday. And nobody could say boo about it, It was great. I think the only other Jewish kid in high school, I think, was a kid named Dana, and I think they actually sent him home one day because they thought it was a holiday.
Could you imagine the kid getting there? Oh, sorry, you're not supposed to be here today.
Be here today.
Yeah, it's Seder Day.
That's right.
I don't think that's right.
I think that's
we're pretty sure we know your religion better than you.
The other Jewish kid told us all about it.
I mean, you were here on Menorah Day, and we let you get away with it, but we can't have you do
it. Yeah, you just can't be here on every Jewish holiday if the state's going to complain.
All right. Well, so let me see if I've got everything. Dragons, the mod of Twilight,
Indeed.
X-Men,
Absolutely.
Thundar the Barbarian,
On the path.
Ghostbusters,
Tells you how to treat people all through life.
Dungeons and Dragons,
Is how I live every single day in my own fantasy world. Sometimes it interacts with this one.
and being thrown into a group of high school seniors as were you an 8th grade or a freshman?
I was 12. So what's that? 7th grade?
7th grade. Holy shit. What did we do to you?
My God.
Yeah.
That might be
All
why
of
you-
which
started making
almost
you
all of
break
whom
early.
I'm still friends with today. Still talk to on a regular basis.
Yeah.
See at least once a year. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us here on the secret origin of Josh Hopper. Josh, how can people find you on social media? And tell us again about that awesome podcast you're on.
We are on the Longbox Guys. You can find us at the Longbox on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter as at Jim Blackheart, only because that's a character I intend to write a novel about someday. And, anonymity on the internet is always good.
Yeah.
So find us at thelongboxguys.com, at the Longbox on Twitter, also on Facebook, and soon you can find us on YouTube and a bunch of other outlets as well. Come listen to us. We're great. Also, find us at cons, because we do panels, and we like talking in public.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.